The cold marble of the foyer always seems to amplify the silence in this house, a vast, modern mausoleum of glass and steel. I trace the intricate pattern on the Persian rug with my bare foot, the chill seeping into my skin. A familiar sensation. 18 years. And this mansion has been my gilded cage. Its luxury a constant reminder of my father's distant, shadowy world. Tonight, the silence feels heavier, charged with an unspoken dread that hums beneath the surface of the expensive air. My phone, a silent sentinel on the polished console, remains dark, a stark contrast to the frantic pulse now thrumming in my veins. I'm waiting, though I don't know for what, only that the air has shifted, the usual tension replaced by something far more sinister, a premonition that tightens its grip around my chest. Then, his voice, sharp and unyielding, cuts through the quiet from the study. Ilara. Now. My name, usually a soft murmur, is a command, a summons I cannot ignore. My breath catches, a tiny gasp lost in the cavernous space. I walk, each step echoing, towards the heavy oak door, the scent of my father's expensive cigar already clinging to the air. The door is a dark, imposing slab, a barrier between my fragile peace and whatever storm awaits. I push it open slowly, the soft click of the latch sounding like a gunshot in the sudden, suffocating stillness. My father stands by the massive window, his back to me, a silhouette against the city lights, but it's the other man, seated calmly in the leather armchair, whose presence truly freezes me. His eyes, dark and unreadable, meet mine, and in that instant, I know my life as I understood it is over. The air in my father's study is thick with the scent of aged leather, expensive whiskey, and a metallic tang I can't quite place, but which feels like fear. My father, usually so composed, so utterly in control, is a trembling shadow of himself, his hands clasped so tightly behind his back that his knuckles are white. He avoids my gaze, focusing instead on the abstract painting on the far wall, a swirling vortex of dark colors that seems to mirror the chaos erupting inside me. I stand just inside the doorway, my heart hammering against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat against the oppressive silence that stretches between the three of us. The man in the armchair, Mr. Volkov, as I've heard him referred to in hushed tones, simply watches me, his expression unreadable, a predator observing its prey, and a cold dread begins to spread through my limbs, turning them to lead. My life in this mansion has always been one of isolated luxury, a gilded cage where every need was met, but genuine connection was a foreign concept. My father, a man of business that was never clearly defined, was more a distant figure, a provider of opulence than a parent. I spent my days lost in books, dreaming of a world beyond these high walls, a world where I could choose my own path, perhaps go to college, study art, or travel. The thought of a normal life, a life free from the unspoken rules and the constant low hum of anxiety that permeated our home, was my most cherished fantasy, a fragile hope I clung to with desperate tenacity, even as the reality of my existence pressed in. Tonight, that fantasy shatters. My father clears his throat, a dry, rasping sound that breaks the silence like glass. He turns, his eyes finally meeting mine, and I see a desperation there, a raw, naked fear that I've never witnessed before. It's the look of a man cornered, a man who has run out of options, and the sight of it sends a fresh wave of terror through me. He gestures vaguely towards Mr. Volkov, then back to me, his mouth opening and closing soundlessly, as if the words are stuck in his throat, too heavy to be uttered. The air crackles with unspoken truths, with the weight of a decision already made, a decision that I instinctively know will irrevocably alter the course of my young life, pulling me into a darkness I've only ever glimpsed from afar. Ilara, he finally manages, his voice barely a whisper. Mr. Volkov has a proposition. The word proposition hangs in the air, heavy and menacing, stripping away any pretense of normalcy. My gaze flickers to Mr. Volkov, who remains impassive, his dark eyes still fixed on me, a faint, almost imperceptible smirk playing on his lips. He exudes an aura of quiet power, a dangerous calm that is far more terrifying than any overt threat. I feel a sudden, overwhelming urge to run, to flee this room, this house, this life, but my feet are rooted to the spot, paralyzed by a fear so profound it steals my breath. The world outside the mansion's windows, with its distant city lights, suddenly feels impossibly far away, a beacon of freedom I can no longer reach. My father continues, his words tumbling out in a rush, a desperate confession. He speaks of debts, of unfortunate investments, of promises made and broken, of a looming catastrophe that would ruin us all. His voice cracks, and he clutches at his chest, as if physically pained by the admission. I listen, my mind struggling to process the torrent of information, the sudden unraveling of the carefully constructed facade of our lives. This isn't just about money, it's about survival, about a world far more brutal and unforgiving than I could have ever imagined. The luxury around me, the expensive furniture, the art, the view, it all feels like a cruel joke, a thin veneer over a gaping abyss, and I realize with a sickening lurch that we are teetering on its very edge, about to fall into the darkness. Then comes the unthinkable. And so, my father says, his voice barely audible, I offered you. The words hit me like a physical blow, stealing the air from my lungs, leaving me gasping, clutching at the ornate frame of the doorway for support. My vision blurs, the room spinning around me, the faces of my father and Mr. Volkov merging into a grotesque, distorted image. Offered me? Like a possession? Like a pawn in some twisted game? The betrayal is a bitter taste in my mouth, a searing pain that eclipses even the fear. My own father, the man who was supposed to protect me, has traded me, his own daughter, to a man whose very presence radiates danger, and the realization is a cold, hard knot in my stomach, a truth too terrible to bear. I stare at him, my eyes wide with disbelief, with a raw, wounded anger that threatens to consume me. What? I whisper, the single word a fragile thread against the roaring in my ears. My father flinches, unable to meet my gaze, his shame a palpable thing in the room. Mr. Volkov, however, remains perfectly still, his dark eyes unwavering, observing my reaction with an almost scientific detachment. He is a silent judge, an unmoving force, and his stillness is more terrifying than any outburst. The weight of his gaze presses down on me, a suffocating blanket that steals my voice, my ability to think, leaving me suspended in a horrifying tableau, a silent scream trapped in my throat, echoing in the vast emptiness of the study. The air grows heavy, charged with the unspoken horror of the situation. My father begins to babble, excuses and justifications tumbling out, a desperate attempt to rationalize the unforgivable. He speaks of no other choice, of protecting what little we have left, of a future he can no longer provide. But his words are hollow, meaningless, lost in the deafening roar of my own shock and despair. I can only hear the echo of his confession. I offered you. It reverberates through every fiber of my being, a brand, a mark of ownership, and I feel a profound sense of violation, of being reduced to a commodity, a bargaining chip in a game I never asked to play, a game with stakes I can barely comprehend, let alone survive. My gaze drifts from my father's pathetic figure to Mr. Volkov, searching for some sign of humanity, some flicker of empathy in his cold, dark eyes. There is none. Only a quiet intensity, a calculating intelligence that sends shivers down my spine. He is a man who takes what he wants, a man who operates outside the bounds of normal morality, and I am now, inexplicably, part of his world. The thought is a chilling realization, a sudden plunge into a reality far darker than any nightmare. The mansion, once a symbol of my father's success, now feels like a prison, its walls closing in, its luxury a cruel mockery of the freedom I've just lost, a freedom I never truly appreciated until this very moment, now irrevocably snatched away. He finally speaks, his voice a low rumble, surprisingly calm, yet laced with an undeniable authority. Your father, he says, his eyes still on me, is a desperate man. desperate men make desperate choices. His words are not a condemnation, but a simple statement of fact, a cold, hard truth that offers no comfort, no reprieve. He doesn't acknowledge my presence directly, doesn't offer a word of reassurance or explanation, simply states the obvious, reinforcing my father's culpability and my own helplessness. It's a subtle power play, a demonstration of his absolute control, and I feel a profound sense of insignificance. A pawn in a game played by giants, my fate already sealed, my voice unheard, my will irrelevant in the face of such overwhelming force. I want to scream, to rail against the injustice, to demand an explanation, but the words catch in my throat, choked by a mixture of fear and disbelief. My father, seeing my distress, takes a hesitant step towards me, his hand outstretched, but I recoil, a visceral reaction of disgust and betrayal. The chasm between us has widened into an unbridgeable gulf, filled with the wreckage of his choices. He has sacrificed me, his own flesh and blood, for his own survival, and that truth is a poison that seeps into every corner of my soul, leaving me hollowed out and aching. The man who was supposed to be my protector has become my betrayer, and the world I thought I knew has crumbled into dust around my feet, leaving me adrift in a sea of uncertainty and fear. Mr. Volkov watches this silent drama unfold, his expression unchanging, a silent observer of the wreckage. He seems to derive no pleasure from our pain, no satisfaction from my father's humiliation, simply a quiet confirmation of his own power. He is a force of nature, an unyielding presence, and I am merely a consequence of his will. The thought is terrifying, stripping me of any illusion of agency, any hope of resistance. I am a piece on his chessboard, to be moved and manipulated as he sees fit, and the realization is a cold, hard knot in my stomach, a bitter pill to swallow, leaving me with a profound sense of helplessness, a chilling understanding of my new, terrifying reality, where my life is no longer my own. My father, sensing my absolute rejection, drops his hand, his shoulders slumping in defeat. He looks older, more fragile than I've ever seen him, a broken man consumed by his own failures. But even his brokenness offers no solace, no forgiveness for the unforgivable act he has just committed. The image of him, once a symbol of strength and authority, is now tarnished, irrevocably altered by his desperate gamble, a gamble that cost him his daughter. The silence in the room stretches, thick and suffocating, punctuated only by the frantic pounding of my own heart, a desperate rhythm against the encroaching darkness, a silent plea for an escape that I know, deep down, will never come. Not from this place, not from this man. The terms, Mr. Volkov says, his voice cutting through the tension, are simple. Your father's debt is substantial. It requires a different kind of collateral. He pauses, his eyes sweeping over me, a possessive gaze that makes my skin crawl. You will come with me. You will live under my roof. You will assist me. The words are vague, yet terrifyingly clear. Assist me. It could mean anything, everything, and the ambiguity is a torment, a slow creeping dread that fills every corner of my mind. I am not being offered a choice. I am being claimed, a transaction completed. My future now inextricably linked to this man, to his world, to a fate I cannot yet comprehend, but which I know with chilling certainty will be far from the life I once dreamed of, a life now irrevocably lost. My father nods, a small, pathetic gesture of agreement, his eyes still fixed on the floor, unable to meet my horrified gaze. He has sealed my fate, traded my freedom for his own, and the weight of that betrayal presses down on me, a crushing burden. I feel a sudden, fierce surge of hatred, a burning resentment that threatens to consume me, but it is quickly overshadowed by a profound sense of despair. There is no escape, no recourse, no one to turn to. I am alone, adrift in a sea of my father's making, a prisoner in my own home, bound by a debt I did not incur, to a man whose intentions are as dark and mysterious as the night sky outside the mansion's imposing windows, a sky that now seems to mock my lost freedom. Mr. Volkov rises then, a fluid, unhurried movement that speaks of inherent power. He is taller than I expected, his presence filling the room, dominating the space. He walks towards me, his footsteps silent on the thick rug, and I instinctively brace myself, my muscles tensing, ready to flinch, to recoil, to fight, even though I know it would be futile. He stops just inches away, his scent, a mix of expensive cologne and something subtly dangerous filling my senses. He looks down at me, his dark eyes piercing, and for a fleeting moment, I see something flicker within them, something I can't quite decipher. Not malice, not triumph, but something else, something unexpected, a flicker of curiosity, and then he speaks. His voice a low murmur that sends shivers down my spine, a chilling pronouncement that seals my fate, leaving me breathless and terrified. "You are mine now, Ilara," he says, his voice devoid of emotion, a simple statement of fact. "And your father's reaction, his willingness to offer you, has indeed shocked everyone." He pauses, a faint, almost imperceptible smile touching the corners of his lips, a smile that doesn't reach his eyes. "But my reaction," he continues, his gaze unwavering, "will be far more surprising." The words hang in the air, a chilling promise, a veiled threat, and a profound sense of unease settles over me, a cold dread that twists in my gut. What does he mean? What kind of reaction? The ambiguity is a torment, a slow, creeping terror that leaves me utterly paralyzed, my mind racing, desperate to understand the true nature of the fate that has just been thrust upon me, a fate I am now powerless to escape. The drive away from the mansion is a blur of flashing streetlights and the oppressive silence of the SUV. I sit in the back, sandwiched between two silent, imposing men in dark suits, their presence a constant reminder of my new reality. Mr. Volkov is in the front passenger seat, his profile illuminated intermittently by the passing glow, his gaze fixed on the road ahead, seemingly oblivious to the turmoil raging within me. My father's face, contorted in shame and desperation, flashes in my mind, a haunting image that refuses to fade. The betrayal stings, a raw wound that throbs with every beat of my heart. I clutch my small bag, the only tangible link to my old life, a life that now feels impossibly distant, a dream from which I have violently awoken, thrust into a nightmare. The mansion, once a symbol of my father's success, now feels like a tomb, a place where my freedom was buried. The luxury, the opulence, it all seems like a cruel joke, a thin veneer over a gaping abyss of debt and desperation. I try to make sense of it, to understand how my father, a man who always projected an image of unwavering strength, could have fallen so far, could have made such a monstrous choice. But the answers elude me, lost in the fog of my own shock and fear. The city lights outside the tinted windows blur into streaks of color, a vibrant world I am now being pulled away from, into a darkness I can only begin to imagine, a darkness that promises to consume everything I once held dear, leaving me utterly alone. We arrive at another mansion, even larger, more imposing than my father's, nestled deep within a secluded estate. It's a fortress, surrounded by high walls and an intricate network of surveillance cameras that glint menacingly in the moonlight. The gates swing open silently, revealing a long, winding driveway flanked by manicured gardens, all bathed in the soft glow of strategically placed lights. The sheer scale of the place is overwhelming, a testament to Mr. Volkov's power and wealth, a stark contrast to the quiet desperation that now defines my existence. This isn't just a house. It's an empire, a world unto itself, and I am now, inexplicably, a part of it, a prisoner in a gilded cage far grander than the one I just left, a cage from which escape seems utterly impossible. Inside, the house is a symphony of dark wood, polished stone, and muted lighting. It's modern, minimalist, yet exudes an undeniable sense of cold grandeur. There are no personal touches, no photographs, no trinkets that speak of a life lived within these walls. It feels more like a high-end hotel, a place of transit rather than a home. A woman, impeccably dressed in a severe black suit, greets us, her expression as unreadable as Mr. Volkov's. She introduces herself as Anya, his personal assistant, her voice crisp and efficient. She leads me to a spacious guest suite, explaining the house rules with a detached professionalism that offers no comfort, no warmth, only a chilling reminder of my new status as a permanent yet unwelcome guest. The room is luxurious, with a king-sized bed, a private balcony overlooking a sprawling garden, and a bathroom larger than my entire bedroom back home. But the opulence feels suffocating, a constant reminder of my captivity. I walk to the balcony, the cool night air a welcome relief against my flushed skin. The garden below is a masterpiece of landscape architecture, but even its beauty feels sterile, devoid of life. I am a bird in a gilded cage, surrounded by beauty, yet utterly stripped of my freedom. The silence of the night is broken only by the distant hum of the city, a sound that now feels like a cruel taunt, a reminder of the world I've lost, a world where I could make my own choices, a world that now seems impossibly far away, forever out of reach. Days turn into a monotonous blur. I am allowed to move freely within the confines of the mansion and its immediate grounds, but always under the watchful eyes of the silent seguranzas, who seem to materialize out of thin air whenever I venture too far. They are discreet, almost invisible, yet their presence is a constant, suffocating reminder of my captivity. I try to maintain some semblance of normalcy, reading, sketching, anything to distract myself from the gnawing fear that lurks beneath the surface. But every book, every stroke of the pencil, feels hollow, meaningless, overshadowed by the looming uncertainty of my future. I am a ghost in this grand house, a silent observer of a life that is not my own, a life dictated by the whims of a man I barely know, a man whose intentions remain a terrifying mystery. Mr. Volkov is a phantom presence. I rarely see him, and when I do, our interactions are brief, formal, and utterly devoid of personal connection. He treats me with a detached politeness, a courtesy that feels more like a subtle assertion of power than genuine respect. He asks about my studies, my interests, but his questions feel like an interrogation, a probing for weaknesses, for information he can exploit. I answer vaguely, carefully, revealing as little as possible, a silent act of defiance in a situation where defiance seems impossible. His eyes, always dark and intense, seem to pierce through my carefully constructed facade, as if he can see the fear and resentment simmering beneath the surface, a silent battle waged in the opulent silence of his mansion. One evening, he summons me to his study, a room even more imposing than my father's. It's filled with books, leather-bound volumes that line the walls from floor to ceiling, a stark contrast to the cold modernity of the rest of the house. He sits behind a massive mahogany desk, a single lamp casting a warm glow on his face, softening his usually severe features. He gestures to the chair opposite him, and I sit, my hands clasped tightly in my lap, my heart pounding a nervous rhythm against my ribs. He offers me tea, a delicate porcelain cup filled with an aromatic blend, and for a moment, the normalcy of the gesture is disarming, almost comforting, a fleeting illusion of a world where I am not a prisoner, where I am not a pawn in a dangerous game. "Ilara," he begins, his voice calm, measured. "Your father's debt is not merely financial. It involves certain information that could compromise many people." His words are vague, yet the implication is clear. My father's mistakes run deeper than I could have ever imagined, entangling him in a web of dangerous secrets. He speaks of a rival faction, a Força rival that seeks to exploit my father's vulnerability to destabilize Mr. Volkov's own operations. The pieces of the puzzle begin to fall into place, revealing a world far more complex and dangerous than I could have ever conceived. A world where information is currency, and betrayal is a constant lurking shadow, threatening to consume everything in its path, including me. He explains that my presence here is not merely as collateral, but as a deterrent, a message to his rivals that he is not to be trifled with, that he holds something precious, something that could be used against them, or against my father. The realization is a chilling one. I am a shield, a bargaining chip, a silent threat in a war I don't understand. My life, my very existence, has been reduced to a strategic move on a chessboard, a pawn in a game of power and control. The moral dilemma is a crushing weight. Do I comply? Do I become a willing participant in this dangerous charade? Or do I resist, risking not only my own life, but also the lives of those my father has inadvertently endangered? The choice is not mine to make, yet its weight is unbearable. He then presents me with a choice, or rather, an illusion of one. You can remain here, a guest, albeit a restricted one, he says, his eyes piercing. Or you can choose to understand, to learn, to become useful. The word useful hangs in the air, loaded with unspoken implications. He offers me access to his library, to his resources, to a world of knowledge that could, perhaps, give me some semblance of control, some understanding of the forces that now govern my life. It's a tempting offer, a glimmer of agency in a world where I have none, a chance to shed the mantle of helpless victim and perhaps, just perhaps, find a way to navigate this treacherous landscape, to protect myself, and perhaps even my father, from the inevitable consequences of his desperate choices. The choice is agonizing. To remain ignorant is to remain a pawn, a helpless victim, forever at the mercy of forces beyond my control. To learn, to understand, is to step into the darkness, to become complicit in a world I despise, a world of shadows and secrets. But ignorance, I realize, is no longer a luxury I can afford. The stakes are too high, the consequences too dire. I look at the rows of books, at the quiet intensity in Mr. Volkov's eyes, and a flicker of resolve ignites within me. If I am to be a pawn, then I will be an informed pawn, a pawn that understands the game, a pawn that might, just might, find a way to turn the tables, to reclaim some semblance of control over my own destiny, even in this gilded cage, even in this terrifying new reality. I will learn, I say, my voice surprisingly steady, a newfound determination hardening my resolve. Mr. Volkov's lips curve into that faint, almost imperceptible smile again, a smile that still doesn't reach his eyes, but which now seems to hold a hint of something else. Not approval, but perhaps a grudging respect. He nods, a single decisive movement, and the unspoken agreement hangs in the air, a silent pact forged in the quiet intensity of his study. I have made my choice, stepped onto a path from which there is no turning back, a path that promises to be fraught with danger, with moral compromises, with a constant struggle for survival. But for the first time since that fateful night, I feel a flicker of agency, a spark of hope, a desperate belief that I might, just might, find a way to navigate this treacherous new world, to emerge from the shadows, not as a victim, but as something more, something stronger, something capable of fighting back, even against overwhelming odds. The days that follow are a blur of intense study. I devour books on economics, on international relations, on the intricate workings of power structures, on the subtle art of negotiation and manipulation. Mr. Volkov provides me with access to encrypted files, to news reports, to a vast network of information that slowly, painstakingly, begins to paint a clearer picture of the world I've been thrust into. I learn about the rival factions, their territories, their methods, their weaknesses. I learn about the delicate balance of power, the constant paranoia, the ever-present threat of betrayal. My mind, once filled with dreams of art and literature, is now a repository of dangerous knowledge, a weapon I am slowly, painstakingly learning to wield, even as the moral implications of my choices weigh heavily on my soul. I begin to observe Mr. Volkov more closely, to study his movements, his expressions, the subtle nuances of his interactions with his subordinates. He is a man of few words, but every gesture, every glance, is laden with meaning. He commands absolute loyalty, not through fear alone, but through a quiet authority, a strategic brilliance that is both terrifying and, I grudgingly admit, fascinating. I see the constant vigilance in his eyes, the subtle tension in his shoulders, the burden of leadership in a world where a single misstep can mean ruin, or worse. He is a complex figure, a man of contradictions, and the more I learn about him, the more I realize that the simplistic labels I once applied to him, Mafia boss, villain, are woefully inadequate, failing to capture the intricate tapestry of his dangerous existence. The mansion, once a symbol of my captivity, slowly transforms into a classroom, a training ground. I am no longer just a prisoner. I am an apprentice, a student in the dark arts of power and survival. The Seguranzas, who once felt like jailers, now feel like silent guardians, their presence a constant reminder of the dangers that lurk outside these walls, dangers that I am now, slowly, learning to understand, to anticipate, to perhaps even mitigate. The fear is still there, a constant companion, but it is now tempered by a growing sense of purpose, a desperate drive to master this new world, to find my place within it, not as a victim, but as a player, however small, however reluctant, in a game where the stakes are life and death, and where every move counts, every decision carries immense weight. The tension in the mansion has been steadily escalating, a palpable hum beneath the surface of our carefully constructed routines. Mr. Volkov has been more withdrawn, his meetings longer, his expressions more guarded. Anya, usually a picture of calm efficiency, now carries a subtle air of urgency, her movements sharper, her eyes constantly scanning the periphery. I've overheard hushed conversations, fragments of names and places, whispers of territory disputes, and unforeseen complications. The air crackles with an unspoken threat, a storm brewing on the horizon, and I feel a growing sense of dread, a premonition that the fragile peace I've found in my studies is about to shatter, plunging me back into the terrifying uncertainty of my initial arrival, but with far higher stakes. My knowledge, once a source of empowerment, now feels like a heavy burden, a constant reminder of the dangers that surround us. I understand the nuances of the rival factions, the volatile alliances, the delicate balance of power that Mr. Volkov so meticulously maintains. I know that any disruption, any perceived weakness, could trigger a cascade of violence, a brutal struggle for dominance. The weight of this understanding presses down on me, a suffocating blanket of responsibility, even though I am merely an observer, a pawn in this deadly game. The mansion, once a sanctuary, now feels like a powder keg, and I am acutely aware that a single spark could ignite a conflagration that would consume us all, leaving nothing but ashes in its wake. One evening, a sudden jarring alarm pierces the quiet of the mansion, a shrill, insistent wail that sends a jolt of pure adrenaline through me. Lights flicker, then dim, plunging the grand hallways into an eerie semi-darkness. The Seguranzas spring into action, their movements swift and coordinated, their faces grim, their hands instinctively going to the concealed weapons beneath their suits. Panic flares in my chest, a cold, suffocating wave that threatens to overwhelm me. This isn't a drill. This is real. The storm has arrived, and I am caught in its terrifying vortex, utterly unprepared for the violence that I know, with chilling certainty, is about to erupt, shattering the fragile illusion of safety I had so desperately clung to in this gilded cage. I am immediately ushered into a secure room, a hidden bunker beneath the mansion, its walls thick concrete, its air heavy with the metallic scent of fear and anticipation. Mr. Volkov is already there, his expression a mask of grim determination, his eyes scanning the monitors that display various feeds from the mansion's extensive surveillance system. Anya stands beside him, relaying information in hushed, urgent tones. The images on the screens are chaotic, shadowy figures moving through the gardens, flashes of light, the distant sound of muffled impacts. My heart pounds, a frantic drumbeat against the silence of the bunker, and I realize, with a sickening lurch, that we are under attack, that the rival faction has finally made its move, and we are caught in the crossfire. Mr. Volkov's voice is calm, almost eerily so as he issues commands, his strategic mind already calculating, adapting to the unfolding chaos. He is a general on the battlefield, his movements precise, his decisions swift and decisive. I watch him, a strange mix of fear and admiration swirling within me. He is a dangerous man, a man who operates in the shadows, but in this moment of crisis, his leadership is undeniable, his resolve unshakable. He is fighting for his empire, for his people, and I am, inexplicably, one of them, caught in the maelstrom of his war, a war that now threatens to consume me, to drag me down into its brutal depths, leaving me forever changed, forever marked by its violence. Suddenly, one of the monitors flickers, then goes dark. Anya curses under her breath, her fingers flying across the keyboard, trying to restore the feed. A new voice, distorted and menacing, crackles through the intercom system, a taunting challenge from the leader of the rival faction. He speaks of retribution, of reclaiming what is rightfully his, of dismantling Mr. Volkov's empire piece by piece. His words are a chilling declaration of war, a promise of destruction, and I feel a profound sense of helplessness, trapped in this bunker, listening to the sounds of a battle raging above us, a battle that will determine not only Mr. Volkov's fate, but also, inextricably, my own. A battle I am powerless to influence, yet whose outcome will define my future. Mr. Volkov's jaw tightens, his eyes narrowing, a dangerous glint appearing within their dark depths. He is a man pushed to his limits, a man whose patience has finally run out. He turns to Anya, issuing a series of rapid-fire instructions, his voice low and urgent. She nods, her face pale but resolute, and disappears through a hidden door, presumably to coordinate the counterattack. I am left alone with Mr. Volkov. The silence of the bunker punctuated only by the distant sounds of the ongoing skirmish, a terrifying symphony of violence that sends shivers down my spine, a chilling reminder of the brutal reality of this world, a world where survival is a constant, desperate struggle, and where mercy is a luxury no one can afford. He turns to me then, his gaze intense, piercing, and for a moment, I think he will blame me, will accuse me of being a weakness, a liability. But his expression is unreadable, a complex mix of anger, frustration, and something else. Something I can't quite decipher. "They know about you, Alara," he says, his voice low, almost a whisper. "They know your father offered you. They believe you are a weakness, a leverage point. The words are a cold, hard truth, a confirmation of my worst fears. I am not just collateral, I am a target, a pawn to be exploited, a symbol of my father's desperation, a vulnerability that his enemies will undoubtedly seek to exploit, to use against him and against Mr. Volkov in their brutal struggle for power." My heart sinks, a leaden weight in my chest. The betrayal of my father, once a distant ache, now feels like a fresh wound, bleeding anew. His desperate choice has not only condemned me, but has also inadvertently put Mr. Volkov in a precarious position, making me a liability, a potential weakness in his formidable defenses. The irony is a bitter taste in my mouth. I, the innocent civilian, have become a weapon, a tool in a war I never asked to join, a war that now threatens to consume me, to drag me down into its brutal depths, leaving me forever changed, forever marked by its violence, a silent casualty in a conflict that is not my own, yet whose consequences will define my very existence. "What do we do?" I ask, my voice barely a whisper, a fragile thread against the roaring in my ears. Mr. Volkov's eyes meet mine, and for the first time, I see a flicker of something akin to respect, or perhaps a grudging acknowledgement of my unexpected resilience. "We fight," he says, his voice firm, resolute. "We show them that their assumptions are wrong, that you are not a weakness, but something else." His words are a challenge, a subtle shift in my perceived role, a hint that he sees more in me than just a bargaining chip, more than just a victim. It's a terrifying proposition, a demand for courage I'm not sure I possess, but in this moment of crisis, it's also a lifeline, a chance to reclaim some semblance of agency, to fight back against the forces that seek to control my destiny. He then reveals his plan, a daring counter-move that involves a calculated risk, a gamble that could either secure his position or lead to his utter downfall. It involves using my knowledge, my understanding of the rival factions, to anticipate their next move, to turn their own tactics against them. The weight of this responsibility is immense, a crushing burden that threatens to overwhelm me, but there is no time for hesitation, no room for doubt. I am no longer just a passive observer. I am an active participant, a crucial piece in his intricate strategy, and the realization is both terrifying and exhilarating, a sudden surge of adrenaline that sharpens my senses, focusing my mind on the task at hand, on the desperate struggle for survival. As he outlines the details, I feel a strange sense of clarity, a sudden understanding of the intricate web of power and deception that defines this world. My studies, once a desperate attempt to escape my reality, now become my greatest asset, my only hope of survival. I offer suggestions, identify potential vulnerabilities, point out strategic weaknesses in the rival faction's known patterns. Mr. Volkov listens intently, his eyes fixed on me, a silent acknowledgement of my unexpected contribution. The dynamic between us shifts, subtly but irrevocably. I am no longer just the collateral. I am a resource, an unexpected ally, a mind capable of navigating the treacherous landscape of his dangerous world, a world where intellect and cunning are as vital as brute force. The sounds of the battle outside intensify, closer now, more urgent. The muffled impacts become sharper, the distant shouts more distinct. The air in the bunker grows heavy with the scent of ozone and fear. Mr. Volkov rises, his expression grim, his hand going to a concealed weapon at his hip. "It's time," he says, his voice low and resolute. He looks at me, his dark eyes piercing, and for a fleeting moment, I see a flicker of something unexpected, something akin to concern? Or perhaps a silent acknowledgement of the danger we are both facing, a shared understanding of the high stakes involved. He is about to step into the fray to confront his enemies head-on, and I am left behind, a silent witness to the unfolding violence, my fate inextricably linked to his, my survival dependent on his victory. He opens the hidden door, revealing a narrow passage that leads to the heart of the mansion, to the ongoing battle. Before he steps through, he pauses, turning back to me, his gaze unwavering. "Stay here, Alara," he commands, his voice firm, leaving no room for argument. "Do not move. Do not make a sound." His words are a stark reminder of my vulnerability, my physical helplessness in this brutal world. But there is also a subtle undertone of protection, a silent promise that he will return, that he will fight for my safety, even as he fights for his own. He disappears into the darkness, and I am left alone in the bunker, the sounds of the battle growing louder, more terrifying, a symphony of violence that echoes in the silent chamber, a chilling testament to the brutal reality of this world. I huddle in the corner, my body trembling, my mind racing, replaying every detail of Mr. Volkov's plan, every piece of information I've gathered about his enemies. I am a silent observer, a helpless witness to a war that rages above me, a war that will determine my fate. The minutes stretch into an eternity, each second punctuated by the distant sounds of conflict, by the frantic pounding of my own heart. I feel a profound sense of isolation, of vulnerability, but also a strange sense of purpose, a desperate hope that my knowledge, my understanding, might somehow contribute to his victory, to our survival. The air is thick with anticipation, with fear, with the unspoken promise of a future that hangs precariously in the balance, a future that will be irrevocably shaped by the outcome of this brutal, terrifying night. Then, a sudden, deafening explosion rocks the bunker, sending a shower of dust and debris from the ceiling. The lights flicker violently, then die, plunging the room into absolute darkness. A wave of pure terror washes over me, a cold, suffocating dread that steals my breath. What was that? What happened? The silence that follows is even more terrifying than the explosion, a heavy, oppressive stillness that speaks of devastation, of an unknown horror. I am alone, trapped in the darkness, surrounded by the echoes of violence, my mind racing, desperate to understand what has just transpired, desperate to know if Mr. Volkov is still alive, if there is any hope left for me, for us, in this brutal, unforgiving world that has so violently claimed me. The darkness in the bunker is absolute, suffocating, a heavy blanket that presses down on me, amplifying every sound, every frantic beat of my own heart. The air is thick with the acrid scent of smoke and dust, a chilling testament to the explosion that just rocked the mansion. I can hear nothing now, no distant shouts, no muffled impacts, only the ringing in my ears and the frantic rhythm of my own pulse. A profound sense of isolation washes over me, a terrifying realization that I am utterly alone, trapped in this subterranean chamber, with no knowledge of what has transpired above, no way of knowing if Mr. Volkov, or anyone else, has survived the brutal assault. The silence is a torment, a slow, creeping dread that fills every corner of my mind, leaving me breathless and terrified. Minutes stretch into an eternity, each second a agonizing crawl. I try to call out, but my voice is a fragile whisper, lost in the oppressive stillness. My hands, trembling uncontrollably, search for a light switch, for anything that might pierce the impenetrable darkness. But my fingers meet only cold, unyielding concrete. The fear is a living thing, a cold, slithering serpent that coils around my heart, squeezing the breath from my lungs. I imagine the worst. The mansion in ruins, Mr. Volkov defeated, his empire shattered, and me, a forgotten prisoner, left to face an unknown, terrifying fate at the hands of his ruthless enemies. The thought is a chilling pronouncement, a bitter taste of despair that fills my mouth, leaving me hollowed out and aching. Then, a faint flicker of light appears in the distance, a thin sliver of illumination that gradually grows stronger, casting long dancing shadows on the walls of the bunker. Footsteps, heavy and deliberate, echo through the passage, growing louder with each passing second. My heart leaps into my throat, a frantic bird trapped in a cage. Is it Mr. Volkov? Or his enemies? The uncertainty is a torment, a slow, creeping dread that twists in my gut. I brace myself, my muscles tensing, ready to fight, to scream, to do whatever it takes to survive, even though I know deep down that any resistance would be futile against the forces that now seem to surround me, forces that have so violently claimed my life. The figure that emerges from the darkness is Mr. Volkov, his face grim, streaked with soot and a faint smear of blood near his temple. His suit is torn, his usually impeccable appearance now disheveled, a testament to the brutal struggle he has just endured. But his eyes, though weary, still hold that familiar intensity, that unwavering resolve. He holds a tactical flashlight, its beam cutting through the gloom, illuminating the dust-filled air. A wave of relief, so profound it almost brings me to my knees, washes over me. He is alive. We are alive. The immediate danger has passed, but the aftermath, the consequences of this brutal night, are only just beginning to unfold, promising a future fraught with uncertainty and danger. He sees me huddled in the corner, and a flicker of something unreadable crosses his face. Not surprise, not anger, but perhaps a grudging acknowledgement of my presence, my unexpected survival. He doesn't speak, simply gestures for me to follow him. His movements still precise, still authoritative, despite his evident exhaustion. I rise, my legs shaky, my body still trembling from the adrenaline, and follow him out of the bunker, back into the ravaged mansion. The air is heavy with the scent of smoke and burnt electronics, a stark reminder of the violence that has just transpired, a chilling testament to the brutal reality of this world, a world where peace is a fleeting illusion and survival is a constant, desperate struggle. The mansion is a scene of controlled chaos. Seguranças move swiftly, assessing damage, securing perimeter breaches, their faces grim, their movements efficient. There are signs of a fierce struggle, overturned furniture, shattered glass, bullet holes marring the pristine walls. But the damage is contained, localized, a testament to the effectiveness of Mr. Volkov's defenses and to the swiftness of his counterattack. He walks through the wreckage, his eyes scanning every detail, his mind already calculating, planning the next steps, the inevitable retaliation. He is a man who never rests, a man who is always one step ahead, always anticipating the next move, always preparing for the next battle, a relentless force in a world of constant conflict. He leads me to his study, surprisingly untouched by the violence, a sanctuary of order amidst the chaos. He sinks into his leather armchair, his shoulders slumping slightly, a rare display of vulnerability. Anya is already there, her face pale but composed, a fresh set of reports in her hand. She briefs him in hushed tones, detailing the extent of the damage, the casualties, the intelligence gathered from the retreating enemy. The rival faction suffered heavy losses, their attack repelled, their objectives thwarted. A victory, yes, but a costly one, a stark reminder of the ever-present threat that looms over Mr. Volkov's empire. A threat that will undoubtedly resurface, more cunning, more ruthless than before, demanding constant vigilance. Mr. Volkov listens intently, his eyes closed for a moment, a rare glimpse of the immense burden he carries. When he opens them, they are sharp, focused, already looking ahead. He issues new commands, his voice firm, resolute, outlining a strategy of immediate retaliation, a decisive blow against his weakened enemies. He is a man who understands that in this world, weakness is an invitation, and strength must be asserted, constantly, unequivocally. I watch him, a strange mix of fear and admiration swirling within me. He is a dangerous man, a man who operates in the shadows, but in this moment, his leadership is undeniable, his resolve unshakable, a force of nature in a world of brutal, unforgiving conflict, a world that has now, inexplicably, become my own. He then turns to me, his gaze intense, piercing. "Your analysis," he says, his voice low, "was insightful. You anticipated their movements, their vulnerabilities." His words are not a compliment, but a simple statement of fact, a grudging acknowledgement of my unexpected contribution. A flicker of pride, small but potent, ignites within me. I am not just a victim, I am useful. My knowledge, my understanding, has played a part in his victory, however small, however indirect. The realization is a powerful one, a subtle shift in my perceived role, a hint that I am no longer just collateral, but an asset, a mind capable of navigating the treacherous landscape of his dangerous world, a world where intellect and cunning are as vital as brute force. "They underestimated you, Alara," he continues, his eyes unwavering. "They saw you as a weakness, a pawn. But you are something more." His words are a chilling pronouncement, a veiled promise, a subtle redefinition of my place in his world. I am no longer just the innocent civilian, the collateral for my father's debt. I am now, inexplicably, a part of his empire, a player in his dangerous game, a silent weapon he can wield against his enemies. The thought is both terrifying and exhilarating, a sudden surge of adrenaline that sharpens my senses, focusing my mind on the implications of his words, on the profound shift in my destiny, a destiny that is now inextricably linked to his, for better or worse, in this brutal, unforgiving world. The aftermath of the attack brings a strange sense of calm, a lull before the inevitable next storm. The mansion is slowly being repaired, the scars of the battle meticulously erased, but the memory of the violence lingers, a constant reminder of the fragility of peace in this world. I continue my studies, delving deeper into the intricacies of Mr. Volkov's operations, my mind now a repository of dangerous knowledge, a weapon I am slowly, painstakingly learning to wield. The fear is still there, a constant companion, but it is now tempered by a growing sense of purpose, a desperate drive to master this new world, to find my place within it, not as a victim, but as a player, however small, however reluctant, in a game where the stakes are life and death, and where every move counts, every decision carries immense weight. My relationship with Mr. Volkov undergoes a subtle but profound transformation. He treats me with a new kind of respect, a quiet acknowledgement of my intelligence, my resilience. Our conversations are no longer just formal interrogations. They are discussions, strategic exchanges, where my input is not only tolerated, but at times actively sought. He shares insights, offers explanations, slowly peeling back the layers of his complex world, revealing the intricate web of power and deception that defines his existence. I am no longer just a prisoner. I am an apprentice, a confidant, a silent partner in his dangerous enterprise, a role I never sought, yet one I am now, inexplicably, beginning to embrace, even as the moral implications of my choices weigh heavily on my soul. The moral dilemmas, however, remain a constant, gnawing presence. I am complicit in a world of violence and illicit activities, a world I once despised. My knowledge, my intelligence, is now being used to further the interests of a man who operates outside the bounds of normal morality. The line between right and wrong blurs, becoming increasingly indistinct, a shifting landscape of compromises and justifications. I question my choices, my growing acceptance of this brutal reality. But the alternative, helplessness, ignorance, inevitable destruction, seems even more terrifying. I am caught in a moral quagmire, a treacherous swamp where every step is a compromise, every decision a descent into a darkness from which I may never fully emerge, forever marked by the choices I've made. My father, a distant memory now, occasionally calls, his voice filled with a pathetic mix of guilt and relief. He is safe, his debt seemingly paid, his life restored to some semblance of normalcy. But the chasm between us remains, unbridgeable, filled with the wreckage of his choices, with the profound betrayal that irrevocably altered the course of my life. I offer him no comfort, no forgiveness, only a cold, detached politeness that speaks volumes of the irreparable damage he has inflicted. He has traded my freedom for his own, and that truth is a poison that seeps into every corner of my soul, leaving me hollowed out and aching, a silent casualty in a war that is not my own, yet whose consequences will define my very existence, forever. The future remains ambiguous, uncertain, a shifting landscape of possibilities and perils. I am no longer the innocent civilian, the naive girl who dreamed of a normal life. I am a survivor, a strategist, a reluctant participant in a dangerous game, my mind sharpened by fear, my resolve hardened by necessity. I am still a prisoner in this gilded cage, but the bars now feel less restrictive, the walls less confining, as I learn to navigate the intricate labyrinth of Mr. Volkov's world. The shocking reaction of the Mafia boss, his unexpected decision to keep me, to train me, has indeed altered everything, transforming me from a pawn into something more, something dangerous, something capable of fighting back, even against overwhelming odds, in a world where survival is the ultimate prize. I stand by the window in my suite, looking out at the sprawling estate, the high walls, the silent seguranzas patrolling the perimeter. The moon casts long shadows across the manicured gardens, creating an eerie, almost beautiful landscape. I am still trapped, still bound by a debt I did not incur, but I am no longer helpless. I have knowledge, I have understanding, and I have a growing, desperate resolve to reclaim my own destiny, to find a way out of this gilded cage, not as a victim, but as a force to be reckoned with. The game is far from over, and the next move, I realize with a chilling certainty, will be mine. A move that will undoubtedly shock everyone, just as Mr. Volkov's reaction once shocked me. A silent promise of a future I am now, inexplicably, determined to forge, on my own terms. The moon hangs high above the mansion, a silent witness to the new life I've carved out within its imposing walls. The scars of the attack have faded, replaced by meticulously restored surfaces. But the memory of that night, and the transformation it wrought within me, remains indelible. I move through these halls not as a prisoner, but as a shadow, observing, learning. my mind a constant whirl of strategies and contingencies. Mr. Volkov, ever the enigma, has continued his subtle mentorship, pushing me to understand the intricate dance of power and survival. I've learned to anticipate, to analyze, to see the unseen threads that connect every decision, every betrayal, every fragile alliance in this dangerous world. The fear that once paralyzed me has transmuted into a cold, calculating resolve, a quiet determination to not just survive, but to master the game, to turn the tables, to reclaim my own agency in a world that sought to strip it away, to prove that I am more than just collateral, more than just a pawn, but a force to be reckoned with, a silent, watchful presence, whose true intentions remain shrouded in the very shadows I now navigate with unsettling ease. My gaze drifts to the city lights in the distance, a beacon of a life I once yearned for, a life of normalcy and freedom. But that world now feels distant, almost alien. I am no longer the girl who dreamed of art and literature. I am a product of this brutal reality, forged in the crucible of betrayal and survival. The choices I've made, the knowledge I've acquired, have irrevocably altered me, hardening my edges, sharpening my mind. The path ahead is still uncertain, fraught with peril, but I no longer walk it blindly. I understand the stakes, I know the players, and I am ready for whatever comes next. The game is far from over, and the next move, I realize with a chilling certainty, will be mine. A move that will undoubtedly shock everyone, just as Mr. Volkov's reaction once shocked me. A silent promise of a future I am now, inexplicably, determined to forge, on my own terms, in the heart of this dangerous, captivating world.